Hello and welcome to Quarterlight, your car brochure channel, and in today's episode we're continuing our 1983 Austin Rover journey. We're now up to Ital. Hello and welcome back. Anyway, Quarterlight, what are we? You might be new. Well, we're a car brochure channel here on YouTube, looking at car brochures from around the world for the 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s, and sometimes beyond that as well. So if you're interested in cars, car brochures, looking back at cars gone by, the channel's really all about memories, then please do consider subscribing. It is all completely free. Anyway, we've been looking at this particular Austin Rover brochure for 1983. We've looked at Mini, we've looked at Metro. Now we've kind of like come to the model I was kind of like wanting to get to, the Morris Ital. Really a car that shouldn't be around in 1983, should it really? Let's face it. But let's throw it on the board there and let's have a look at the range. So here is the brochure we've been looking at. Austin Morris MG Rover Triumph, January, February, March 1983. At the time really had too many names because of cars like the Morris Ital still being in there. The model, the actual brochure we looked at before this was actually this one from 1984, and we just got Austin Rover cars now because they've tried to consolidate the names really. We've now got the Austin Maestro, Austin Montego now that have taken over. But by this time, 1983, in some ways this was a lot more interesting range really, wasn't it? Having the Ital, having the Ambassador on there as well. Really 70s cars still being sold in the 80s, really being sold on price. There are, let's face it, far better cars out there now, but that still doesn't mean I don't really love these cars. Very much more 70s cars though, still clinging on, very much in the usual Austin Rover tradition, keeping cars far too long, new models coming in far too late unfortunately, and that's all down to, I don't know if it's all down to budget really. I think that's more down to poor management overall really, but that's another story. But let's turn the page to the Morris Ital. And we're actually greeted by a lovely scene of a trio of Itals. Let's just zoom in a little bit further. And this is actually at a time when they kind of like updated the range and changed the names. So here we've got at the back there, and the pictures on the next page are better and we'll have a better look at these, but the one at the back there is an Ital SL, and then we've got an Estate and Saloon SLX top trim Itals. Unusual names though, SL, SLX. Strange to give those to Austin Rover cars really. A very peculiar idea to change it to that, because before then it was L, HL, HLS, which is a more traditional trim names, so that was a little bit weird. But let's turn to the first page and then I'll see if I can find another Morris Ital brochure for time before these were, you know, SL, SLX, the proper kind of like range, which makes more sense. L, HL, HLS. There they are, a little bit more zoomed in, but anyway, like I say, let's turn to the first page anyway. So, like I say, no L trim at this time. The base model was the SL. I think really because they were really fighting to sell these. Very much a vehicle sold on price, and pretty much that's it. Bargain basement. I can't afford too much. This is going to do the job, and it's quite a big car. I think that's the idea. And the idea of dropping the L really is, let's give the customer a few more features to tempt them to continue buying these, let's face it, 70s cars. So this is the SL. We'll just pick up a few key points at the top there and we'll have a look at these images, and then we'll probably have a look at the L and HL that came before these. So it's telling us the Ital in 83 got a push button LW MW radio for the SL trim, aerodynamic spoiler. You know, it's very much an aerodynamic car, so let's put an aerodynamic spoiler on there. Front door bins, tweed fabric upholstery and bright bumper cappings. Engines, it's a 4-cylinder inline 4-star 97 octane fuel 1.3 SL which is OHV 1275cc, 60.8 bhp, coupled to a 4-speed all-synchro mesh gearbox. So it's not going to set the world on fire, you know, it's just a very small little engine there, but, you know, let's face it, it is what it is, and I'm not putting these cars down at all because I actually really like them, actually. There is something about them, but then again, I really like the Marina. Maybe that's a very uncool thing to say, but I love the Marina, so I love the Ital, even though, like I say, it shouldn't really be around in 83, let's face it. But let's have a look at some of the images. So there's our super basic seats, tweed fabric upholstery though, so at least it's not vinyl, so that's something. Notice no head restraints though, because they didn't have to put head restraints on in the UK, so why bother? Not even any sort of holes to put any sort of aftermarket ones on there. Lower down gives us a nice, well, not actually that nice an image, actually it's just a very blurry picture in motion. And then we move down further. Standard radio, it's a bit basic, but it is there. Door pockets, and obviously this is what you keep in your Morris Ital. Door pockets at the time, the Ordnance Survey for Dorchester, of course. That super basic interior, super basic steering wheel, no rev counter or anything, so again, they're not exactly throwing equipment at us at the moment. And then a look at what wheels they put on the SL spec in 83. The main image, there it is. I must admit, on this particular brochure, the photography, or at least the printing on the pages, isn't the best actually. But there is our SL Morris Ital in 1983. They added things like bits of, something like this, little bits of, I would say chrome, but it's obviously not real chrome. Sort of bright work around the bumpers to sort of liven it up a bit, I guess, and a bit of bright work around the windows on this particular version. We also get a little bit of a, oh, is it a tape stripe or is that a rubbing strip? I'm going to say it's probably a tape stripe down the side there. One door mirror, so, you know, it is what it is. But before that, in 1982, the range actually made more sense. And in this particular 82 brochure, what a lovely image showing both the estates and the saloons and the different trim levels. Starting on the left hand side, saloon and estate in L trim, saloon and estate in HL trim, and then the far right, the range topper, the saloon and estate in HLS trim. Which really for Austin Rover makes more sense, doesn't it? L, HL, HLS. Think like trying for claim. So I'm not sure why they went for SL. I mean, which other Austin Rover cars uses those sorts of trim levels? It was a very strange decision. Like I said, the L has gone by 83. We can forget about the L. So really, the SL was kind of like equivalent to the HL. This particular brochure opens up wonderfully to show the L at the top and then the HL down here. I'll just have a zoom in on the L. So there's your L dash. You can see it didn't have things like a radio, and I guess really they wanted to continue selling these to at least stick a radio in there, didn't they? But still using that terrible Marina, the later Marina dash where the radio actually points the wrong way, which I always struggled with, and hence why I always liked the very first Marinas. But really, the model we're looking at, the SL, it's a more equivalent to the HL. And this is the HL. I'm going to say that this particular interior picture is exactly the same interior picture that we used on the newer brochure to promote the SL. So lots of similarities there for sure. And if we zoom in, we can just about make out the radio on the left hand picture, and then the right hand picture, again, using exactly the same image showing them OS maps in there. So, yeah, let's use the same pictures. In fact, if I move the camera down still further, that is the same radio picture that they're using. The wheel's a little bit different. You've gone for this sort of darker looking wheel by the looks of it. And in fact, when we look at the main image for the HL, And apologise for the bits of reflection there, but it was only a tiny picture. But we can see that sort of like graphics on there on the earlier ones as well. But anyway, let's move to the higher specs Ital on the newer brochure. So when we move to the newer brochure again, look at the top of the range Italian 83, and yes, I've still got the old brochure behind it, but when we move to the 83 SLX in 83 there, we'll actually see some of these images actually used again on the newer brochure for this. So we're saying the SLX is equivalent to a HLS. So why did they change the names from HLS to SLX and HL to SL? I think they were just trying to use every ploy they could possibly get to really continue selling these, saying, oh, there's a new uprated range, but really it's more or less the same thing. But we'll start up here and see what you got, and then we'll move to these images, and then we'll move up here to look at the HLS and see how it matches up. Okay, so the specs for the SLX, we get full ribbed plain velour seat coverings. Okay, you're tempting me now. We get a rear centre armrest, approved, tinted glass, front seat head restraints, I'm safe. Twin door mirrors, I'm really sold on this model now. So nicely spec'd actually was the SLX, and you know it's going to be like a very keenly priced car. The dash there, if only there wasn't that radio pointing the wrong way, which I struggle with, but rev counter, nice. Seats velour, nice. That rear centre armrest, head restraints, I'm liking it. Random image of the boot capacity, saying 12.9 cubic feet boot capacity, although it doesn't show the full boot, rather oddly. And a look from the outside. SLX gets even more sort of bright work on the grille there. We get a rubbing strip, we get these lots of like beauty rings. That's very much a 70s thing to throw them on there, but yeah. I say it and I say it again, it is what it is really. It's a keenly priced, yes, an old-fashioned car, but you are getting a lot for your money. After all, twin door mirrors. Oh, and actually, just before we do go to the newer brochure, sorry, the older brochure, I have to say on the newer brochure for the SLX, the engines were that 1275, although you could get a 1.7, so a 1700cc 70 bhp engine if you wanted, which is obviously a lot bigger. Still with that 4-speed all synchromesh gearbox. No auto by the looks of it. Okay, so the older brochure, the 82 brochure, back to the HLS, which, like I say, pretty much as equivalent to the SLX. Have a look at that dash there. Again, rev counter. Telling us we get a ribbed and plain velour seat trim, tick. We get front seat head restraints, tick. Tinted glass, tick, and a passenger door mirror. And that again is a nicer picture than the newer brochure, but that is that same interior. So, like I said, pretty much the same thing in spec terms at least. Engine slightly different on this older one. So right at the bottom there we can say the versions are the 1.3, the 1.7, but you can also get the 2 litre on this older Ital. So a 2 litre auto saloons and the 1.7 and 2 litre ultra estate cars. So in fact the 2 litre HLS is actually the rarest of all the Itals. I think they only did about 1,000 of them, so that's one to look out for. I don't know how many of those are left, but that is the rarity version. Picture wise, we have to actually go back to our main image to see a picture of the HLS actually. So in some ways actually a more interesting car, although we'll notice we don't have that sort of bright work on the bumper there. But like I said, a bit more interesting. Look at that, we get a vinyl roof, or at least it's showing a vinyl roof on this particular example, which makes it a little bit more interesting, particularly if you do it as a 2 litre auto. That's, like I said, that's the rarity model. That's an interesting one. So like I say, they weren't playing around with the trim levels too much. They were just saying this is a new model really, come get the new SLX because it's new. Trying to continue selling these old cars for that little bit longer. And that takes us to the Estates, and I think the Estates are actually my favourite of the Itals, I must admit. So you can still get Itals in this newer version, so a 1.3 SL, a 1.7 SL now, and also a 1.7 SLX, the sort of top trim levels. So for these you could get 58.4 cubic feet of load space, servo assisted brakes, rear window wash wipe, carpeted load area and a load space lamp. Now obviously the advantages with an Estate is the rear, so that's what they're really keen on showing us. So this is of course showing the practicality of that seat folded down low. It's not a split fold, but still gives you a lot of space in the back, with lots of wheel arch intrusion and even spur wheel intrusion. Where is it over here? Look, so yeah, limited. We even got a bit of fuel tank pipe intrusion even on there, but like I say, it's an old design, isn't it, after all? There it is with the seats up again, and then this is with the tailgate down, of course, but rather nicely. I think what it's trying to show you is the rear wash wipe, but rather nice to see how it's badged. So Morris on that left hand side, then Ital, and this is obviously the 1.7 litre version, SLX, in this trying to look fancy and modern script in red. I don't think that's really fooling too many people though. And then if you look at the main images, we get this not exactly a great image of the SL, but it's a small picture in the background. But if we kind of like come to the foreground, there it is in all its glory, and I think it's the most handsome actually of the Itals, my favourite one by quite some way, I must admit. I'm not sure what's happening. I don't know if I can point it out. I'm not sure what's happening here. Let's just zoom in and see what's going on there. I was thinking that trim piece had actually fallen off, but it's just the weird design, you know, this sort of trim piece here, but I guess it's quite a crude little vent actually, isn't it? Not the most attractive design, but like I say, it's an old-fashioned vehicle, still trying to keep it relevant in 83 really. But anyway, let's have a look at the HLS's. So here is your HLS from the rear, kind of like the similar sort of story overall. In fact, I can even put them side by side. So here is the two models side by side. Apart from the badging, pretty much a similar story from the rear. SLX of course on the left hand side, the HLS on the right hand side. Just a bit of a rebadging exercise more than anything really, I guess, unless you of course went for that 2 litre auto for your HLS. And then when we turn to the section for the Ital Estates, as in the older Itals, HL, HLS, it tells us generally a similar sort of story really. Carpeted load space lamp, 31.4 cubic foot of storage space with rear seat in position, 58.4 cubic feet of load space with rear seat folded forward, rear window wash wipe, heated rear window, reversing lamps, rear fog guard lamp. Again, it's promoting the rear of course, how much space you can get in. HLS is at the top there. And then we got a HL on the, in fact we get 2 HLs if I just move it around there. We get a rear of what the HL looked like. So the HLs, they're next to each other, and then it even shows a single image of that lowly L version. So that will take us to the exterior body colours. Incidentally, the only options at this time for the Ital was a laminated windscreen, black paint and metallic paint, and that was on all the models, so very limited what you can actually get on those. But let's have a look at the colours and let's see what you can actually get for the Ital. So these colours were actually evolving all the time for these cars. So this is January, February, March 1983, so there's no point saying, well actually it came in this colour and it didn't come in this colour, because this is what you could get at this time. It was constantly evolving and changing. So the colours you could actually get on your lovely brand new Ital, Cinnabar Red, you could get it this time, but I think later in the year they actually dropped that colour actually. Black you could get, Silver leaf metallic, yes. Cashmere gold metallic, yes. You could get the lovely Orplan green metallics and zircon blue metallics, even for your metal, and I think they were quite modern colours, and they are probably my favourite of the colours. You could also get this, it's just about in shot, ermine white, and you could also get champagne beige and nautilus blue. Next week, another very much aging model, the Ambassador, so we'll look at that next week. So there we go, the lovely Morris Ital. Any memories, any opinions, love it or hate it? Drop them in the comments. I always read in all your opinions, all your views, and all your expert knowledge as well as your experiences. Love all that. For me, I really like the Ital. Yes, it was way out of date by this time. I don't think anyone would argue that, but it was what it was. Cheap bargain basement wheels. And looking back today, would I have one today? I'd have one today. They're an interesting car. I struggle with that dash, I must admit. I think I'd probably prefer one of the very first Marinas, but maybe that's just me. Anyway, thank you so much for watching today. And I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. I hope you're enjoying this look at this 1983 brochure. We'll continue next week, but obviously there's other makes and models during the week as well. But we'll end by saying, please, if you've not done it already, please do consider subscribing. It is all completely free. Helps me and you at the end of the day. Helps us grow the channel, helps you find the episodes you want to see. So, and is extremely easy to do. So look out for subscribing, it is free. But overall, thank you so much for watching today and the Morris Ital on Quartzlite. Appreciate you as always. Please do take care. We'll see you very soon. All the best and goodbye.